discussion of the entire first season of the Netflix original series Stranger Things. I'm Adam Foxman, this is Mathis Coos.
What's up?
And you can follow us on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and Reddit. We'd love to field any questions, comments, and concerns. And also, please rate us on iTunes. This is the number one way that you can support our show, and we'd really appreciate it. What's going on, Mothman?
I love that you're now throwing to me as Mothman.
I mean, now that it's been explained, I feel like I can just lead with that every time.
Now that people understand the reality version and the upside down version.
Nice. That's
right,
pretty good.
Right. Pretty sweet reference.
Yeah.
So as always, just to get the advertisements out of the way, we have the links in our show to all the various films that have been referenced throughout by us, and also references that are clearly made in the show. And I also added our first bit of Stranger Things merchandise. There's now an official t-shirt out there on Amazon. Pretty exciting, right?
Yeah, it is sweet. I looked at that link earlier, and I definitely want to get that t-shirt. It's really cool looking.
And the other thing that's a great way to support us is trying out Audible. So for those who haven't tried it out, it's very much like Netflix, which you're watching Stranger Things on, but of the audiobook world. So you pay a monthly fee, and you get audiobooks that way, and it's significantly cheaper than if you actually go out and buy an audiobook. So one that I have been recently listening to is Hallucinations by Oliver Sacks, which is a really interesting nonfiction book in which they discuss hallucinations and the various ways that they kind of come up as part of the human experience. So migraine hallucinations, sensory deprivation tanks like we see in Stranger Things, drug hallucinations, fever dreams when people get the fever really bad. It just talks about all these various cases where they've been part of lives even before, drugs were part of the picture.
Nice. I'm still on the same book, but one feature that's really awesome about Audible that I wanted to add is it's really cool that even, let's say that you have it for like 6 months and you've got like a little bit of a backlog of books that you haven't quite caught up on, you actually can stop your subscription for say like a month or two, and you still have access to all the books that you've downloaded. You still retain the credits that you've gained during that time as well, I believe. So it's actually really awesome in that sense, because I've gone back and I had it for a very long time and wasn't using it for about 2 months towards the end before I canceled it. Had all these extra credits, downloaded stuff, and then was listening to books for about 2 or 3 months where I wasn't even paying for it before I rebooted my subscription.
Yeah, so it's a fantastic service. So go to audibletrial.com/Boob Tube Buddies. It's a way to try this fantastic service for free. The book you get for free, you own. You don't actually have to continue your subscription to keep in contact with that book. And it's a great way to support our show. So let's dive into this thing. I think we have quite a bit of fun post-season content to discuss. Right? Yeah. I mean, this is like so awesome because we've really been looking forward to finishing the series, A, to see how it wraps up, but yes, B, so we can get out and wade into the deep end of the internet to find out what other people think about, the Demogorgon and Eleven's connection with it and the Upside Down and all this other stuff. So it's like I'm just like rediscovering all of this excitement on the internet that I was avoiding before. I'm like really looking forward to this episode, maybe more so than any other one we posted so far. Yeah, I mean, there's so much cool content that I kept bookmarking and starring and not watching because I was afraid it would spoil something. One I posted online, and I think I've mentioned before, but the Supercuts video was so fun to watch because it shows all the various scenes that they like cinematography-wise, framing-wise, are actually mimicking, and it's cool to see those side by side, but it totally shows like the last scene where the creature's destroyed by 11, so it would have given everything away. So it's nice to get out there, read all the stuff that the internet's been exploding about, and not have ruined it for ourselves earlier on,
Yeah, and speaking of which, the first segment that we're going to get into here on this episode is tinfoil hat theories. And I've got a couple, you've got a couple. We have not shared them with each other ahead of time. Honestly, for all we know, I'm about to list one off, and it's going to be the exact same one that you have here. But basically, these are ones that we found, found from people online. I think, unless you have one of your own, right?
No, I don't have one of my own. I mean,
oh my god!
I mean, I have the
so embarrassing.
I have the one of my own that you poo-pooed all over last episode.
That is true. I felt a little bad about that, especially when you sent me that ultra passive-aggressive email.
Yeah, I mean, all I'm saying is that blood's a little bit too on the nose for Mothman,
Nicely done.
Outside the box over here.
Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and start it off with the first one that I read. And first off, credit to user Peters45 on Reddit. I got this off of the Stranger Things subreddit. Okay, and his theory is that the Demogorgon is directly linked to 11. So let me explain his theory a little bit. You have to give me a minute to kind of get through all of it, and then I'll throw it over to you just kind of for your reactions. Okay, so basically what he's saying is that he is convinced that the monster is not just like random, did not exist there necessarily before 11. Instead, what it really is kind of like a physical manifestation of her troubled psyche. Now, let me go a little bit further into it. Essentially, 11 has gone through all of this incredible trauma, being brought up inside of this laboratory, being forced through all these terrible experiments, killing people, being celebrated for killing those people, and all these different things, which could definitely have had inflicted incredible psychological trauma on her, which could have led to, say, like a dissociative disorder. Now, so what this person's saying, not is that like 11 is consciously controlling the monster, but basically the monster existed within her mind kind of as like part of her personality. She goes into the sensory deprivation chamber, and in that chamber, in that space she's in, like the pure black where she ends up hearing the Russian person from across the world, that is not like some alternate plane. Like that is the inside of her mind. And do you at least agree with that part, that where she's at in this sensory deprivation chamber is not some alternate universe? She's really in like exploring the depths kind of her own mind, because she's not transported anywhere. It's not like it's a time machine or something like that, or a transporter.
Well, no, but the idea with like deep meditation is that it's an out of body experience. You're able to leave your physical body and travel to other dimensions and parts unknown. So I think it's definitely starting off in her mind, and I think the whole implication is she obviously finds a way and escapes her mind when she makes contact and sees that beast. That's when she bridges the gap between the two worlds. I would say when she's not interacting with anyone in that area, that's when she's strictly in her mind.
And that is the part, basically, of where he's saying that the upside down is essentially created when the main part of her comes into contact with this dissociated part of her personality that she's been repressing. And when she touches that part and merges them together, that's when there's this split, essentially, that occurs, which kind of creates the upside down, where the monster is sort of dumped into that, and that's kind of like the line of her personality a little bit. And it gives a lot of different examples of how that could possibly be the case. So 11 recognizes Will's face in the pictures at Mike's house, but they had never interacted with each other before that. So if she was not somehow connected to the Demogorgon, there is that I could find no explanation for how she would recognize Will right there. Okay, so that's one part. There's another part that the Demogorgon is drawn to blood, which, maybe that's a point of contention between us.
Yeah, bullshit. I call it bullshit, you guys.
But he says, 11's nose bleeds so many different times after using her powers, yet the Demogorgon never comes after 11 until the very last episode, when it's already there and in like a complete enraged, blood, thirsty state. Another part is when she faces off against the monster in the classroom at the end, she extends her right hand to channel her powers at it, and at the exact same moment it mirrors her image of doing the same thing with its right arm. Now you've mentioned Silent Hill quite a bit, which the Duffer Brothers, the creators, have also mentioned as being one of the primary influences for the look and feel of the Upside Down. And a big part of those games is the terrors and the monsters you see in Silent Hill are a gruesome product of your own psychosis. So there is not necessarily, you couldn't tell exactly that this is the case, but there are some different things that support it. Like Both times that 11 had to focus really hard to find Will, the monster ended up finding Will immediately afterwards. First with the school's ham radio, which is when Will appears to Joyce in the wall of the house, and then also with the makeshift sensory deprivation tank in the gym. So, and then that's when the monster breaks through Castle Byers immediately afterwards. So, there are a couple of things, and I thought that was interesting, because the one that I'd heard most often is just simply that it's an alien and that it's an alternate reality. But I think that it's interesting to delve a little bit further into it to see if, maybe there is... They have, apparently, the Duffer Brothers, a 30-page manifesto of what the monster is, where it came from.
Like a show Bible.
Yeah, but it's unreleased, so we have no access to it. But I thought that it's completely unprovable, but I thought that this was like a really interesting, deep look at how the Demogorgon might have came into existence via 11 and the psychological trauma that she had inflicted upon her.
Sure, and I will say, the one I read, and I actually like this, and it's just tying things into each other, goes down a similar path, but not exactly. So I think it's very interesting. I don't think it's as simplistic as it's just another dimension, this is some alien creature. One of the things I like about Silent Hill is it plays on both the avenues of it being psychological and it actually existing. So its psychological trauma is what lets them tap into this, other dimension that otherwise only demons and ghosts and haunts and ghouls and stuff would manifest in. And it's mostly comprised of negative thoughts and feelings and essentially, monsters that have built themselves up on those. So not to say that it's necessarily her psychosis that creates this monster, but she tapped into it, and then now they kind of are this permanent link, and it's how the monster is getting into our world at all at this point. So the fan theory this one is about, it's on moviepilot.com. And
did you do that on purpose as
yes.
a Jay and Silent Bob throw?
Yes.
Okay, nicely done.
So the article's name is Nerd Alert, How Dungeons & Dragons Explains Stranger Things Much More Than You Imagined.
Oh, okay, yeah. I purposefully avoided this after you had mentioned something along this line, so I'm curious to hear it.
Yeah, it's got quite a few sources in it because it also pulls from Reddit and those things. So it does talk about a little bit of history of D&D, when it started, and oddly enough, like I remember there being the backlash against D&D because a D&D player killed himself in the 80s, and it was this big ordeal that it's like, kind of the whole satanic panic type thing, and this series takes place like right in the full swing of when all that stuff was going on, which is interesting.
Okay.
But that doesn't have much to do with the theory. So Redditors, the new Newt Barron and PC App Data had a rundown of basically the character classes in D&D that each correlate to the kid. So Mike is the Paladin class, and the Paladin class is a fighter who acts in the name of good and order. The order aspect, Mike is the Dungeon Master. So that one's pretty vague. I don't think that's too damning. But Will, he would be the rogue. The rogue class is very stealthy and good at hiding, which would explain Will being able to survive in the up and down and not get caught, whereas, Barb didn't bode so well, right?
What would her character classification be? Would she be the monk?
I guess. It would just... Will is... Or sorry, not Will. Now, Dustin is a bard. Bard has a great way with words and is also very smart and diplomatic. So he's always mending fences between Lucas and Mike and Lucas and Eleven. Lucas would be the ranger. Ranger's an independent and skilled hunter who uses their wilderness skills to hunt down enemies. He's the one that decides he's going to the gate and he's going to pursue it all on his own, right? And then Eleven would just, kind of goes pretty without saying, the sorcerer, right?
For sure.
So here's the other interesting thing from D&D.
Would Sheriff be the warrior then?
We're getting there.
Okay.
All right. So the Redditor Prolapse Pineal, pineal gland is your third eye, so I think that's kind of a cool name. Talks about the Demogorgon being a kind of a weird creature in and of itself. It's got two heads. So this is where, and what was the Redditor's name you used?
All right, hold on. Let me scroll back up on my notes so I can get the okay, it's user Peters45.
Okay, so different one, because this guy's is also a Redditor with a similar theory. And I like his name, Theon's Sausage.
Okay.
Theon's _sausage.
That's pretty good, actually.
He talks about how, she's kind of able to control the body of the Demogorgon, albeit with just her powers, and then they disintegrate and are kind of consumed together. So the idea with the D&D character is also this is a creature that's been in Christian literature since 480 AD, and it rules over a realm called the Abyss. It's the home of demons, right? So all this stuff is lining up, but the two heads kind of are at odds with each other. So one of them, I think there is Amiel, the other one Hethridia, but they, it's almost like good cop, bad cop. So this is almost the psychological take on the Demogorgon. It, owns the realm of the dead or the demons, but one of them is, vicious. The other one wants to save humanity. It also makes sense when she says, "I am the monster." So it kind of goes down the same stuff you did. Now the last piece.
So two sides of the same coin, 11 on the right side up and the Demogorgon on the upside down.
Oh, there we go. That was pretty good. And now this last part, and this is actually how I found this article, because I was searching what I mentioned last episode is they have that kind of metaphorical speech at the end of the campaign when they're like, oh, it was only 10 hours long, and what about the Lost Knight? What about the Proud Princess? What about the weird flowers in the cave? So the Lost Knight would be Hopper, like what's going on with him? He's now talking to agents, yet he's the hero. Is he really a hero? The Proud Princess obviously is 11. We don't know what's going on with her, but we know Eggos are being left in the forest. And then the weird flowers in the cave, this one's reasoning isn't as ironclad, but the weird eggs in the cave that could be potential offspring of this creature, and the creatures do have flower-like faces. So if you saw one inside of those eggs, it might look like the weird flowers in the cave.
Okay. How do you think that the little slug things fit into that? Like, is that like just like a different creature that lives in the Upside Down?
I think so. I think there's, a whole ecology there.
Because the Upside Down itself actually is kind of like a living, breathing thing. Like the portal itself opens and closes itself. It moves. It oozes. Inside of it, it's like the Demogorgon is actually bringing it things to feed upon and to use as hosts for its little parasites. So the Upside Down itself is almost like a living, breathing organism.
I would agree with that.
So do you think... So, I mean, basically the Demogorgon being killed is just like... I mean, it's like a short-term solution, but it actually doesn't really address the larger issue, which is that this tear, I guess, still exists, right? Like, nothing happened to change that. The portal is still there, correct?
Possibly. I mean, they didn't show, so there's a million ways they could take it, but if the link was truly the fact that the Demogorgon's good side had made it into a human in this realm, and that was where the link happened, right? They were naturally drawn to each other, and eventually they made contact when she got old enough to use her powers and was trained. Well, then when he died, maybe that door is locked, but it's not to say that, they could still, Hopper is now investigating, and there's maybe a million other kids throughout the world that are being trained in this subtle way, and there's all these other portals we don't know in other small towns also being covered up. So it doesn't mean that this portal being closed really closes the possibilities of where they could go and take the show.
True. It is. We've heard different things about the possibility of maybe next season won't be like picking up directly after these events. Like it could even be like an American Horror Story-esque thing where it follows like a completely different group of people. Mm-hmm. And I have to say, like, I was just so happy with this group of characters that would you not be at least a little bit bummed if they did end up going away from this group of characters?
I definitely would. I don't think they are. And I guess Jim Hopper, David Harbour did an AMA, and I was
I read through it.
Yeah, I was reading. Well, I thought I saw in the recap of that, or maybe they were just referencing something else during the recap that the creators confirmed they were going to try to bring everyone back for season 2.
Oh, okay.
So, I mean, maybe, so that would be nice, even if it is like, well, let's do it 100 years in the future and it's their kids' kids. I don't know, but hopefully they don't do that.
I don't think that they will, and when we get to our interesting tidbits little section here in a few minutes, I have a couple of things that I think might point towards the fact that there are characters that have unresolved plot lines, like purposefully so that it could be picked up upon if the show were picked up, which, I mean, I read one of the chief content creators, or not creators, but like managing directors with Netflix, saying basically that it would be stupid not to pick it up for a second season.
Yeah, I'm sure it would. And as far as all like the intentional leftover plot lines, I'm sure one of them that you're thinking about is Flo, the dispatch lady, the fact that she's been secretly killing kids in the next town over and feeding them to the Upside Down.
Yeah, I guess that's one of the plot lines.
It's pretty heavily applied throughout, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, definitely. She is. She's the Thessal Hydra.
Yeah, she's always sending him in, like, to the real obvious cover-up directions.
Typical. Creating all this excitement so that the Demogorgon can just sort of distract them from what the Thessal Hydra, is doing in the next town over.
Can't wait for that season 2.
Okay, so we had just a couple of little gripes here with the season that we just wanted to cover, and maybe these could be picked up upon in a second season and would be moot, but for now, they, to me, were just like little dead ends.
The fact that you said they might be picked up, I now know that your gripes are more substantial.
Oh, no, okay. Let's start with yours then.
I think 11 should have killed one of the bullies, preferably DJ McPisspants.
Damn, that would have been really dark.
Right? Instead of just breaking his arm, she snaps his neck, throws him off the cliff.
Netflix sends around a thing for people to fill out a survey, and I filled out one for Stranger Things it's kind of like, what characters would you like to see more if it came back? What characters would you like to see less? And different things like that. And then it go ahead.
I was saying, we have awards, so don't spoil who you want to see more of.
No, I didn't. Okay. I intentionally left that out.
Okay.
But the one thing that I did write on there about, it was said, in just so many words, what would you like to see done differently next season? I said I'd like it to be darker.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah,
I actually would like to see things like, 11... quote unquote Breaking Bad and like in a fit of rage killing one of the bullies or something like that, just to make it a little bit more adult content, because I know that it's pulling from a lot of these influences in the 80s where you couldn't get away with being
well, it's also pulling from influences that the people that get them are 30.
Yeah.
So I think it would be appropriate to do that.
I totally agree. So I totally agree with you on that. It would be cool if things like that happened, if it was a little bit darker. But I mean, it was cool enough that she broke his arm, I guess.
Yeah, they went that direction. And we talked about this last one, but it's still one that just, I think back at the whole season, and it kind of annoys me, is Papa's death was just super underwhelming.
Yes, it was. Let's just table that one because I have something to say about that one in my interesting tidbits section.
Ooh. All right.
Okay. So one thing that to me they early in the show, it was kind of teased a little bit that there was a past relationship between Joyce and the sheriff. That never really seemed to amount to anything. We didn't get really any background story on that. It wasn't really touched upon at all again towards the latter half of the season. It was just kind of like this dangling little plot thread that was brought up early on and then like completely forgotten about, right? Am I wrong? Was that ever addressed again?
I forgot it was ever brought up.
Okay, so exactly. So
much so that by the end of it I thought, like, I don't know, because they went through this herring event together and there seemed to be a bit of chemistry, and they bonded over, some pretty just inherently intimate moments, not sexually, just with the subject matter.
Yeah, two people with a shared experience.
Yeah, a shared experience, like, the loss of their kid, but also just this ridiculous adventure. I was almost rooting for them to get together and completely forgot that there was this potential prior relationship. I mean, maybe they didn't feel like it needed visiting because they imply a few times that, Sheriff kind of sleeps around a bit of a womanizer in that way. So I don't know. Maybe that's why they didn't.
I get that could be a rationalization for it, but if that were the rationalization, then logistically, why even bother mentioning it in the first place?
I don't know. I mean, hey, maybe there's more scenes with him with women and playing up that aspect, and they just wanted that to contribute, and it got edited, and they didn't think of in 8 hours you're gonna rewatch this because you're addicted to it and be like, oh wow, they really don't, fall through on that. I'm curious with something like that's the one untapped market, in my opinion, of Netflix is the special features aspect and like the director's cut aspect.
Yeah,
I wonder if because this is such a cult following type show, because I don't watch House of Cards, which I absolutely love, and think, what about this and what about that? It's just not that type of show, and it's politics instead of fantasy, so there's less, conspiracy theories you can go down, but I would kill for some behind the scenes type stuff that they actually had as Netflix content.
Oh my god, yeah. I honestly hadn't even thought about that you don't get the behind the scenes stuff, and that kind of seems like that would just be so easy for them to do. Like, that already has to be on the cutting room floor. Like, what an easy thing to put back out there for your fans, basically just reassembling some of this additional footage type stuff.
Now, to be fair, they do have Blu-ray and DVD releases of Netflix shows.
Did not know that. This is the first I've ever heard of that.
And I only know that because I've seen House of Cards advertised, so I wonder if that's the only time they package that stuff, which, I mean...
That's probably true, then.
To me, though, it makes sense to... The only people that should have to buy that stuff is people that don't have a regular Netflix subscription. They like the show, they sign up for it, and then they want to keep it. But I have Netflix year-round, so I don't feel like I should be penalized from the special feature standpoint.
Okay, well, that's interesting. So you agree with me, then, that if they were going to bother mentioning that, then they should have done something in the latter half of the season, or if it didn't matter, which it didn't matter at the end of the season, just never bring it up at all because it just doesn't really do anything.
Yeah, I would agree there. Another interesting thought I just had is, Kanye West's album, The Life of Pablo?
No, I don't, but go on.
It's his newest album. I have not heard it, but one thing I thought was very interesting is it was constantly being updated. So he launched this album on, I think, Tidal or something, and then a week later, songs had changes that people noticed. And it was like a work in progress, and lyrics would be edited, sounds would be edited and added. So I almost think about like in a Netflix thing where, I don't know, a week from now they heard us because our podcast is super well known, they take that out.
Yeah, what, like director's cut? Not actually adding scenes, but more like editing and things, something like that?
Yeah, but I just think of it as being weird that when Kanye was doing it, it wasn't announced. It was almost like when the few times South Park has aired and you can see mistakes in like the animation, and then by Saturday they finish it Wednesday morning, so by Saturday that mistake's never seen again.
Oh, okay. I didn't even know that was a thing either.
Man, I'm just so full of knowledge.
Oh my god, you're dropping it like crazy today. Okay, so the other one I had was that Lonnie is a bit of a superfluous character. Like, he doesn't really add or detract anything from the show, and by the end of it, looking back on different characters, if you took out Lonnie and then the small amount of impact that he's really had on this show, I feel like the time spent on his character could have been like way better spent elsewhere. Because you could say the same thing about characters like Mike's father, but Mike's father is only ever there to play off of other characters in little parts, and he's never like this, like a central part of a scene. Whereas Lonnie has interactions with Joyce and with Jonathan as like, a commanding character during those scenes, and they don't do anything to advance the plot forward, at least in any meaningful way. He was there for Joyce during that little segment there towards the middle of the season, and then he gets kicked out.
Yeah, before she gets pissed at him, but that's about it.
during that time, I don't think that he really contributed anything. I just don't think that his character had any value to the show at all, and could have been taken out, and that could have been maybe 15, 20 minutes across the rest of the show that could have been parsed out to other characters.
Yeah, I would agree. I don't think they should have cut him as a character at all. I just think that he should have just been the name for the person that Hopper wants to investigate. The screaming dad in the background during the flashback scene. I don't mind that he exists, that he's the dad that left. It's just they didn't need to have the road trip to see him. They didn't need to have him come back and support or anything.
Yep, that's exactly what I'm saying. They don't need
just
to remove
have the
him
chief check
completely,
it out.
but
The chief didn't find anything.
Yes, yeah, and it could happen like off camera, like something that we never see Lonnie. Because we didn't really need to see Lonnie. It didn't really do anything. So the very minor gripes, they don't really add or detract anything from the show. But my gripe really is that if it doesn't add or detract anything from the show, then take it out. Exactly like you said with the pudding scene during the season finale.
Yeah, it was.
But at least that was a little funny, So at least it added something like a little bit of laughter or mirth in the middle of like a heavy episode. Lonnie added definitely no laughs, right?
Yeah, no, Lonnie added no laughs, and I'll say this right now: no hard feelings, Ross Partridge, but fuck you.
Is that the name of the actor?
Yeah.
Damn.
I'm just saying, man. I wish they cut you.
I pinned it on the Duffer Brothers. I think that his portrayal was fine. It's just worthless, really.
Sure. Yeah.
Okay, so you want to move on to interesting tidbits and kind of just do you have any, or is this kind of more my section to go through?
I don't think there's much discussion to be had on this, but they auditioned 906 boys and 307 girls to find the perfect cast.
I wrote down the exact same thing, and during that audition process, they were asked to read classic scenes from Stand By Me as their audition pieces.
Oh, I didn't have that tidbit. I'm glad we could play off each other that way.
Yeah, and the main reason I found that interesting is because we referenced that movie like 15 fucking times throughout the. I mean, it was such an obvious play off of it. I mean, there were literally iconic shots on the railroad tracks. So, but yeah, I thought that was kind of cool.
Yeah, I think that's cool too. All right, your turn.
Okay. So the date and time where Eleven kills the Demogorgon, which is Saturday, November 12th at 10:04 p.m., is the exact same time that Doc and Marty go back to the future. Like it shows it up on the clock tower.
That's funny. That's awesome.
Okay. Yeah, pretty cool. All right. So towards the end of episode 8, if you pause it at the 6-minute and 3-second mark, you'll see the newspaper clipping detailing that Will Byers is alive. If you pause it and read this article and like get real close to your TV screen, you'll notice a part where it references Dr. Brenner being asked for comments, and basically it kind of indicates that he's still alive, like that he actually responded to this thing, and then the Duffer Brothers in an interview said something along the lines of, okay, they were asked. And I'm going to quote it verbatim. Okay, so when last we see Dr. Brenner, the monster is leaping onto him, but then you cut away quickly despite being very comfortable with gore. Did you want to leave his fate ambiguous, or was that meant to be his death? And then Ross Duffer says, we wanted to purposefully leave it ambiguous, and Matt Duffer says, I will say, if we were going to kill him, we would have really killed him. That's a very anticlimactic death. And if that's his death, if I was a viewer and that was his death, I would be upset about it. So basically indicating that Dr. Brenner really is still alive.
Okay, so I like that, but I mean, don't you think they would, if they know that this would make a viewer upset, don't you think they'd make it a little more goddamn obvious?
Yeah.
Right?
Of course, he's literally saying it's an anticlimactic death. If that was his death, I'd be upset if I were a viewer, but they're basically like leading you to believe that that's his death.
Yeah, I mean, I shouldn't have to find a fucking interview afterwards, especially when special features aren't on Netflix, to find out that, it's not really his death. They should have shown him on a stretcher with his face all screwed up, and they could have used bubble gum and melted plastic.
Yes. I mean, okay, let's move this from interesting tidbits into the gripes section, because we complained about it last episode, and it really was a bummer. I mean, it would have been, I think the term that I used last time was great justice porn to see him fucked up, and I think that it was just a missed opportunity.
Yeah, I do too.
Even if he's alive, just like you said, a small scene where he's being wheeled out on a stretcher, completely fucked up but alive, something along those lines. But the way that they left it, that wasn't perfect.
And one more piece I'll add: they give you all these cliffhangers. I mean, Will's coughing up a slug, Hopper's going with these agents that were the villains the whole last show, and the Eggo's
in the forest for 11.
Yeah, the Eggo's in the forest, and they can't have his bloody body wrapped up in a hospital bed with a faint heartbeat.
Yeah, that's it. That's all that you need to show for that. So missed opportunity there. We don't need to dwell on it, but
because we have already.
Yeah. And I'd love to hear from anybody else that feels differently about any of these gripes that we have or any of these fan theories. We'd love to have a dialogue about it. If you have any reason why you like the way that they handled the Brenner thing, I would love to hear it, because right now I can't think of any real good defense of why they would have done it that way. But okay, so here's another one. So this is just something you probably easily catch if you rewatch the show. So the first two lines of dialogue, it basically in the whole series, if you skip past the scene where the scientist is panting and running through the laboratory when he gets killed in the beginning, is something's coming, something hungry for blood, foreshadowing the Demogorgon's attraction to blood. Suck it, Mothman. And that's from their first game of D&D. So I thought that, first off, that's kind of interesting. They're basically saying like something's coming, something that's hungry for blood. So they really in that scene are, if you follow my theory and the one that there really is like you said, on the nose, which is that the Demogorgon is attracted to blood, then that was just kind of interesting foreshadowing. So also after this, Will walks out of the house. He pauses to talk to Mike as the other kids are rolling away on their bikes. And he says, I rolled a 7, the Demogorgon got me. And then he leaves and the lights start flickering, meaning like he was basically already being followed kind of at this point. Yeah. And since this game of D&D foreshadows the existence of the Demogorgon as the monster, is it possible that when they're in their last game of D&D at the very end of the season are playing and the Thessal Hydra is the monster, could that possibly be some foreshadowing that maybe the Thessal Hydra could, like, maybe we need to look up what that thing looks like in the D&D lore and throw it up on the Facebook page, because maybe that's what the next monster will be modeled after.
I just looked it up, and like our prior part of the conversation, it looks just like Flo from Dispatch.
That's pretty funny. Right? Yeah, I like that. Okay. That's pretty good. Okay, so the last one that I have written down is so the bully who gets his arm broken. We just talked about that a minute ago. Do you remember the very first time when we see that bully?
The very first time we see the bully?
Yeah, he and his other little bully guy come up, and do you remember what they asked Dustin to do?
Dislocate his arm?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's it. That's basically an interesting little tidbit, is the very first thing you see with this bully is him asking Dustin to dislocate his arm, and then basically the last thing of any import that happens to the character is he has his arm broken.
Oh, eye for an eye, I gotcha.
Yeah, so there's nothing to it. I mean, it goes no deeper than that. But I think that had to have been, at some point, like a wink and a nod from them.
By the way, we will put a Thessal Hydra up. I mean, if you know what a Hydra looks like, it means it has multiple heads, which, if we're following the theory of, Demogorgon has 2 heads and 11's 1 and the actual flower face monster's the other, we're going to have a hell of a lot of monsters to deal with.
Yeah, and maybe it could be something to do with, like, 8 of the first 10 different people, right?
Maybe.
Okay, so, and also, real quick, do you think that 11's mom counts as one of the first 11?
One of the first what?
11 subjects? Because we're assuming that she's 11 because she's the 11th test subject. Do you think her mother is like the 4th test subject or something like that, perhaps?
It's possible. I didn't get a good look at her arms.
What do you mean?
Have a tattoo.
Oh, okay, yeah. No, actually, I wonder if you went back and looked if she actually would have a tattoo on her arm.
Although it probably wouldn't be. I think the implication was that the kids that were secretly being smuggled had the tattoos, because otherwise they were just part of MK Ultra, which MK Ultra was like a real program.
Okay.
Where they were doing like government testing with LSD. So I wonder if it's like there's the program that's been talked about and people knew about, but then there was the crazy shit, like they pretended it was a miscarriage, took the baby, and that was 11. It didn't have a name, it didn't have an identity.
Yeah, and her original name was Jane, right?
Yes, Jane.
Okay. That's it for me on the tidbits thing. So do you want to go ahead and move on to the awards?
Oh my god, I do. I think I sent you the questions, right?
Yeah, I didn't look at them. I wanted to go into it fresh.
All right, I like that.
But now I'm nervous that I'm not going to come up with good answers.
It's okay. There's some that I even thought about. I was like, I don't know. None of my answers are good. But hey, first one, best hair. So I'm going to do you have one off the top you can do?
I have 2 that I really like, so I'm going to let you go first, and then I'll go with the other one, because it's got to be one of 2 characters.
All right. Survey says rape face.
Okay. That would have been my number 1 choice, but I'm going to go with Dr. Brenner and his fucking weird wolf hair.
Yeah, his weird, like, feathered 80s hair, but it's all gray and receding.
I will say runner-up shout-out to Barb.
Yeah, her hair is pretty sweet. So I don't know if you noticed a pause before I answered.
Yeah. Was I supposed to do something there?
No, of course not. So the next one is best character art, character arc, right? So character development. So survey says 11. See, that's what I was supposed to play last time. That did not. So my favorite character arc is 11. You get to see her go from like timid, abused, subject to absolutely badass heroine that saves her friends, when a month ago she didn't know what friends were. So I thought hers was the most effective. I have a second place one, but I want to hear what your first place one was, because maybe it's different.
Okay. My first one is going to be... I want to say the sheriff because he's my favorite character. And he did come a little bit of a ways, from the basically hungover alcoholic that we saw in the beginning to the hero at the end. But he kind of always had that in him. So I'm actually going to kind of go out of the box here, and I'm actually going to go with Rape Face. Because he did actually end up having an interesting arc where he started off, and the more you watch it on a second watch, or a third watch now for us, which is what I'm doing, you see his reactions to some of the things that Tommy and Philomena do, and he like kind of makes a face when they are like making fun of Jonathan when he walks in, like when Tommy says, yeah, he probably killed his brother himself. If you look, Rape Face kind of like has just a very faint and quick disgusted look on his face, like that Tommy would say something like that. Mm-hmm. So he always had a little bit of, not necessarily, running with the right crowd. Maybe he's just kind of acting that way a little bit, but he's maybe a good guy inside. To by the end being just like a genuinely good guy. So I don't know. He's the one character that really won me over at the end that I didn't like in the beginning.
And we talked about that episode 1. Like, I wonder if Rape Face is going to be like Jaime from Game of Thrones, who's like totally despicable to start out with, and over time you kind of grow on. But
yeah, and the door was cracked open from the beginning, and you actually see signs of it more on a rewatch.
But ultimately, I mean, he went from Rape Face Steve Harrington to heavy petting Steve Harrington. The last episode's when everything kind of comes together, and he turns into Babe Ruth with the baseball bat and the nails, and has a badass moment. So I like that.
Swing away.
Yeah.
Swing away.
Oh God, not Signs. Movie's terrible,
I actually kind of like Signs until it gets towards the end parts, and especially swing away from me is when it falls off a cliff.
Metaphysical bullshit, but also when you realize their weakness is water is when it unravels. Like, but the planet's 75%. Why would they invade it? It's blue from up above. And anyway. So.
Yeah, maybe try to take over Mars or something like that.
Yeah, take over Mars and eat their bacteria if that's what you need. My other one was Joyce, because Joyce goes from, I think it's almost a weird character arc because it's more about the external people, not her, but she goes from the absolutely crazy person to, kind of helping Hopper and going out of the way and really stepping things up, where they portray her early on as obviously worried about her kid, but that things are unraveling, and that's, Jonathan's reaction really supports that, even if it wasn't for Will. Like, he's having to pick up shifts to support them, and, things aren't turning out the way she wants. So you start with that, and then the very end of the dinner scene, she's all dolled up. She doesn't look, disheveled or anything. You kind of see this entire journey, and it's more than just, her son coming back, because that first morning when she's looking for her son, she's also pretty disheveled and obviously not a representation of, who she could be.
Well, yeah, it's almost actually when you see the flashback scenes of how normal and happy she was, it's almost as though this entire journey has actually brought her around to a full 360 to where she was during her happy and fulfilled days.
Sure. Yeah. So, and I also would have loved, I still love Hopper as a character, but yeah, I didn't think his actual character arc was much of a change. It was more like helping him become who he always was, but has temporarily down because of his daughter passing. And this was a way for him to, be who he already was and was capable of. So,
yeah, but it certainly is a journey, because in the beginning it's like he doesn't even want to be bothered with the police. He's like coffee and contemplation flow,
Sure.
By the end he's gone from being like this guy who's not really putting his all into his job or any part of his life to a guy who is given everything. But
it's also like for a missing kid.
Yeah, I want to see not like he's just gonna sit back and really kick his feet up on his desk when he's got that on his plate anyway.
Yeah, so I'm wondering, say he didn't join the Secret Service or whoever after this whole season, if it was just the next day and there was someone who wasn't paying their parking tickets, was he really going to roll up his sleeves and get to work and make this happen?
Yeah, he's probably gone back to lackadaisical police work, honestly.
Yeah, exactly. So, anyway.
Okay, what you got next?
Next one is super mega badass moment.
Are you going to do the drum roll?
I guess I can do the drum roll. So, I imagine we're going to have the same one on this, but who knows? So, are you ready for it?
I want you to go first. Nice.
11 killing the henchman.
Nice. Okay, yeah, that was a really good one. Now, which henchman are you talking about? Eyeblood or the first time you see her snap the dude's neck?
I do love that moment too, and I thought it was badass, but when she just drops all those fucking people and they're bleeding out of their eyes and then eventually pouring out blood, which the crazy emotional heightened levels there is what attracts the Demogorgon.
Okay, for me, the most badass part was the very first time that you see the walls being pushed in.
Oh, that was amazing.
Yeah, see, and it's only, watching it by comparison, obviously that's not as, in-your-face exciting as some of the other huge moments, say, for example, 11 killing the Demogorgon. But, the actual reveal of that, my skin was crawling when that happened. That was so goddamn creepy. To me, that one, that probably impacted me more than any other moment watching it for the first time. So that's going to be my first one.
That reminds me so much of the first time you heard Mothman's stage presence.
Yeah, it's something like that, I guess.
From the reality version of the story. All right.
The reality version is my version, right?
No. So moving on to the cry, sad tears moment. I want you to go first.
Excuse me?
The cry, sad tears moment.
Cry, sad tears moment?
Yes.
Are you saying that because I told you I cried like a goddamn bitch during the last episode?
No, I'm just differentiating them from tears of joy.
Okay, all right.
And I also tried to write it kind of as if it was a Japanese food.
Okay. I don't
Multiple
even-
adjectives, you know?
Okay. All right. So so the part that made me cry. Okay. Easy as shit. Give me the drum roll.
Drum roll? Oh, God, I didn't know you were going to be that demanding.
I mean, you get multiple drum rolls and I get nothing? This is typical Mothman in the upside down behavior.
Hey, the one that controls the soundboard controls it all, right?
Oh
Lord of the
my
Rings,
God.
bitch.
I was gonna say, you make it stop? That's fucking obnoxious.
That's when you start to talk over and I pull it away.
I couldn't. It was destroying the inside of my brain.
All right, well,
God, I have these headphones plugged in, and it's so rattling through my brain.
All right, one more time. You ready for this?
Please softer or shorter. Okay. Sheriff Hopper's daughter dying. And not actually even just the dying part, just her sick in the hospital, him reading to her and then crying in the stairwell. That part definitely got me. I 100% ugly cried during that scene.
Nice. I mean, not nice, but, thanks for being vulnerable for the audience.
Can I just go out on a limb and guess that yours is going to be none? I didn't cry at all?
Well, maybe. I mean, I am Mothman, right?
Okay, let's hear it. I guarantee you that's what it... I already know. It's as if you shared your notes with me already.
No, it's not true at all. I definitely teared up. I never ugly cried. The part about the daughter I thought was touching, but I don't know. I think maybe because it was so... all took place in one episode and there wasn't stuff building up to it, it didn't hit me. I kind of felt it, but I didn't actually tear up. But when I did tear up... and I think the music was part of it, was when they found Will's body.
Okay, yeah.
So when they, on the first watch, obviously on a rewatch, it's not real and all that, but when they first pull his body out of the water, all the kids have been rushing to find him with 11, and then they see him being pulled up and dead. And even you as a viewer who are holding out hope because of 11's powers, I don't know, I was like, oh, okay, maybe he's gone and this is this other realm and he's never coming back. I wasn't necessarily expecting the ending we got where they were able to save him from the upside down either,
Yeah, and the song that they played right there, while I didn't actually like the song itself, it definitely was, it served the purpose of being emotionally manipulative. It definitely, the swelling tones of it, that scene got me too.
Yeah, see? I'm a little emotional and vulnerable.
I don't believe it for 2 seconds. Fucking snake's tears over here. Wait, crocodile tears?
Snake's
tears.
I thought crocodile tears just meant you cry really big tears.
Is that true?
I think it is.
I thought that it meant that you were faking it.
It's possible.
Okay, alright, moving on.
Alright, so this one I'm really excited about because this is something that, as fathers, we don't get to do, which is pick a favorite child. Right?
Okay, drum roll this shit up. This is so easy.
I do think we're going to actually have the same one on this one. You ready?
Yeah.
I'm going to do a different drum roll.
Dustin.
Yeah, same here.
It's just, he is
Dustin and Mike. I like Mike a lot.
Well, yeah, but and Mike is awesome, and the kid who portrays him does an absolutely fantastic job. But for me, Dustin is the moral compass. He's also really, really funny, and his voice is funny. He's just a great all around character. Really brings a lot to it, and he really feels like I don't know, like a real nerdy kid.
Yeah, they definitely made a really real breathing cast of kids with this. I to an extent liked all of them, but I thought he was the one that I found the most likable. You liked laughing with him and at him.
That would be the biggest shame about moving away from this cast of characters, is that it's so hard to get a believable cast of children characters or actors, and they really nailed it with all of them. Even my least favorite of all of them probably being Lucas, mainly just because he's against the grain so often, which he's right in feeling that way a lot of the time.
He is the rogue.
Yeah, but even they're all just good actors. They're good child actors. You can't take that away from them.
No, you can't. They might, if they were to move away and they needed kids again, they'd have to interview another 1,000.
And can I say that the girl who played 11 was just absolutely just put on a stunning performance throughout the whole. I mean, especially with such minor dialogue for her, she just really managed to hit it out of the park with the way that she emoted physically with her face.
And take in mind, I don't actually really count her as one of the children. Like, I basically meant the boys. My favorite characters are Hopper and 11.
Yeah, that's mine too. And probably just about everybody's. Except for the bar bites out there.
Well, yeah, which, it's...
To each his or her own.
Yes, to each his or her own. The other one, I don't actually know how many choices there are for this, but it's the best Hopper punch.
Oh, okay. Do you drum roll this shit up?
Drum roll this shit up. Okay, are you ready for this? You ready for this?
Yeah. I'm always ready. To me, it's definitely got to be when he gets caught going into the going into Hawkins by the security guy, and then his little henchman. And when he punches them out, or when he punches the head security guy out, steals the gun from the other dude, and then him gets his way into like the Hawkins lab afterwards.
Okay, yeah, that's definitely a good one. My favorite one was when he goes to see Will's body and cut it open and see it stuffing, and he's like, "Hey, I think I left my hat in there." It's like, "Whoa, buddy, I'm not Punch."
Yeah. that one is good because that's probably the most unexpected of all his punches.
Yeah, that's the one where like, oh shit, this guy punches first and asks questions never,
Yeah, seriously, old Chuck Norris over there.
Yeah. Man, everything we've ever said about Chuck Norris, you can just apply to Chief Hopper.
Mm-hmm. Walker, Texas Sheriff.
Mm-hmm. That's a title if I ever saw one. All right. So I think that brings us to the end of the awards.
Okay, and I guess that really wraps up the whole season for us. Overall, I have to say, this was an incredibly fantastic series. It wasn't without its flaws, but it was so unique and original while still managing to harken back to just so many great nostalgic films. And it was such an incredibly great ride. The part of it really helps that it came out in the summertime because there's not shit else on right now. So being able to have something like this, it was really easy to just fall head first into it. And I think that it's really set itself up well to move forward with however they want to move this plot.
Yeah, I mean, there's tons of threads to tug on. There's obviously the cliffhangers they presented to us, but then there's these other cliffhangers with Papa and whatnot. So there's so many directions it could go. I'm really excited to keep doing it, and a testament to how good this is, and also Preacher has been. We have, since our very first post, it's been exactly 1 month, and this is our 22nd show.
God damn, is that true?
Yeah, 22 Boob Tube Buddies episodes between these two, the San Diego one, the first BoJack one, and then this one tonight. So
you and I have personally, between the two of us, recorded
over 20 hours.
Oh my God, that's crazy for 1 month.
That's insane.
And that's during the summertime, during by far the biggest lull of television. Wow, that's crazy.
What's also crazy is that I love you to death, but I think that's more time than we've spent together in the last decade.
Oh my God, more time than I want to spend together in the next decade.
Yeah, but it looks like it's this at least close to this each month for the rest of our lives.
Oh my God.
Right?
Yeah, absolutely, man. This has been incredibly fun. We're really just seriously fortunate that when we decided to do this, that this show just happened to be coming up. I feel like we just really lucked into having a great show to talk about.
Yeah, agreed. Awesome. Well, on that note, thank you so much for listening. As always, check out the links to different merchandise and movies that are referenced in this case in our description. And then also, please give Audible a shot. It's a fantastic service, audibletrial.com/boobtubebuddies, and pick up some great books that you can listen to on the way to work.
And real quick, the upcoming things that we have that we want to talk about is The Get Down. That's what it is, right? The Get Down?
Yes.
That starts on Netflix later this week, I believe, and that's going to be covered by Dan and Nathan, who you have heard on the BoJack Horseman episode 1 of season 3. And then Mathis and I are going to be doing the Cinemax original series Outcast, which you can actually catch the first episode of that for free on YouTube. And again, that's Outcast Cinemax on YouTube. You should definitely check that out. It is scary as fucking tits. It is so scary. It's like demonic possession type stuff. It's got the kid that was in Almost Famous, who is like the aspiring journalist, and it seems like it's going to be really good. It's definitely more up Mathis's alley than mine, but I can appreciate good writing and good acting, good sets and all that stuff when I see it, and this show is gearing up to be something special, so I'm excited to start in on that, which you'll see the first episode probably later this week.
And we also are hoping to have a Suicide Squad review up on Sunday or next week sometime, so all kinds of great stuff, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So again, thank you to all the fans who have who we've managed to somehow attract during this last month, and it's just been an incredible ride with you guys, and really looking forward to moving on to other shows with you, and anything that you ever have to add to the conversation, we are incredibly receptive to it and look forward to having a dialogue with you in any one of the mediums that we mentioned before: Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and Reddit.
Awesome. Well, we'll see you next time, little buddies.